5:12 local time. Strait of Hormuz. The sea looks almost unreal in its calm. From the flight deck of the American aircraft carrier, the water stretches out like polished silver under the first light of morning. Far in the distance, tankers move slowly through the shipping lanes. Fighter aircraft remain secured to the deck. Sailors continue their routine watch rotations. On the surface, everything appears controlled, quiet, and ordinary. But 200 feet beneath the carrier, in the dark, cold layers of the Gulf, something is moving. Inside the Combat Information Center, the steady rhythm of routine operations suddenly changes. A sonar operator stops moving. On his display, a faint acoustic trace flickers across the passive sonar feed. It is not loud. It is not obvious. Just a slow mechanical pulse hidden inside the natural background noise of the ocean. He leans closer. "Possible subsurface contact," he says evenly. There is no panic in his voice, no sudden rush. But every person in the room looks up. The signal steadies. Bearing 147, range 19 nautical miles. The acoustic profile is weak, but the pattern is clear. Diesel-electric propulsion, submarine. The contact is moving slowly, barely 2 knots, almost drifting through the thermocline, where layers of warm and cold water bend sonar waves and make detection harder. It is exactly the kind of place submariners use to stay unseen. The operator marks the track. 5 seconds later, another tone appears. A second acoustic trace enters the system from a different direction. Bearing 161, range 21 miles. Another submarine signature. The room becomes even quieter. The tactical display updates. 2 underwater contacts are now moving across the digital chart beneath the carrier strike group. Different bearings, different acoustic fingerprints, 2 separate submarines. For a moment, nobody says anything. Then the sonar console flashes again. A third signal rises out of the background noise. It is weaker than the others, but steady. Bearing 132. Range 23 miles. 3 contacts, 3 submarines. All moving slowly, all closing toward the same center point. The carrier. Inside the Combat Information Center, the watch officer studies the tactical map without changing expression. "Track them," he says. No raised voice, no dramatic order. Just calm authority. Above them on the bridge, the aircraft carrier continues its steady passage through the Strait of Hormuz, cutting a wide white wake through the narrow corridor between Iran and Oman. The ship displaces nearly 100,000 tons. It moves like a floating city. But below the waterline, it has one unavoidable weakness. It cannot disappear. The Combat Information Center feeds the data into the strike group's network. Within seconds, every escort ship sees the same picture. Destroyers, cruisers, helicopters, the entire formation is now watching 3 small icons crawl across the digital ocean floor. 3 submarines are approaching in a loose triangular formation. The geometry is not accidental. Submarine crews train for this kind of positioning. A 3-angle approach spreads pressure across multiple directions, making it far harder for a large surface vessel to maneuver away cleanly. The pattern forms slowly but unmistakably. 3 quiet shadows moving into position beneath the Gulf. 5:17, 200 miles away, high above the Persian Gulf, a maritime patrol aircraft banks slightly east. It is a P-8 Poseidon, carrying one of the most advanced anti-submarine systems in service. Inside the mission bay, technicians begin releasing sonobuoys into the water below. Small cylinders splash into the sea and deploy underwater microphones. Passive buoys, active buoys. Within minutes, they build a listening grid across nearly 60 square miles of ocean. Each buoy listens, each buoy reports. Then one of them detects something, a faint propeller rhythm moving beneath the thermal layer. The signal is transmitted instantly by satellite link back to the carrier strike group. Confirmation. Subsurface contact. Then another buoy triggers. Second confirmation. Moments later, a third buoy lights up the network. 3 separate underwater signatures. The tactical display aboard the carrier updates again. 3 red tracks now move steadily closer. Range decreasing. 19 miles. 17. Inside the Combat Information Center, the sonar operator adjusts his headset and watches the acoustic waveforms climb slowly across the screen. The sound is clearer now. Low-frequency propulsion, Iranian diesel-electric class. There is no uncertainty left. These submarines are not simply passing through the area. They are closing in. At their current speed, they will enter engagement range in less than 40 minutes. No sirens echo through the carrier. No dramatic announcement rolls across the ship. But every station inside the strike group understands what the display means. 3 submarines, 1 carrier, and the quietest phase of the hunt has just begun. 5:29 local time. The Strait of Hormuz is beginning to wake. Cargo ships move slowly through the narrow lanes. Oil tankers slide across the horizon. The morning sun rises higher over the Persian Gulf, stretching long silver reflections across the water. From the outside, the American carrier strike group looks exactly the way it should. A massive aircraft carrier holds a steady course through the sea. Two guided missile destroyers move several miles ahead. Another escort stays slightly behind. Helicopters sit quietly on the flight deck. Routine, professional, predictable. But beneath the surface, the ocean is getting crowded. Inside the Combat Information Center, the sonar picture becomes clearer with every minute. The three submarine contacts have not turned away. They are still closing in, slow and deliberate, moving at barely 2 knots. At that speed, a submarine barely disturbs the water around it. Its acoustic signature is no more than a whisper. But underwater, whispers can travel a long way, and now every sensor in the strike group is listening. The sonar operator follows the first contact, range 14 nautical miles. The submarine remains deep beneath the thermocline, where layers of warm and cold water bend sonar waves and create pockets of acoustic shadow. It is one of the best places to stay hidden, but no hiding place stays perfect forever. Another update appears on the tactical display. The second submarine adjusts its bearing slightly, only a few degrees, so small that most civilian vessels would never notice it. But inside the carrier's tactical system, the pattern becomes impossible to miss. The three submarines are spreading apart. The triangle is getting wider. The watch officer studies the display in silence. He does not need to explain it. Everyone in the room already understands what it means. They are moving into position. A carrier strike group is one of the most protected naval formations in the world. Surface radar, air patrols, electronic warfare, escort ships, layer after layer of defense. But an underwater approach is different. It comes from below, and below the surface, the entire game changes. 5:31. One of the escorting destroyers activates its hull-mounted sonar. A sharp metallic pulse bursts outward through the water. Ping! The sound cuts through the ocean like a pressure wave. Inside the Combat Information Center, the acoustic display fills with reflections as the sonar pulse travels outward, strikes layers of water and seabed features, then returns. Ping! Another pulse. Ping! Every submarine in the area hears it immediately. To a submarine crew, that sound means only one thing. They have been found. Inside one of the Iranian diesel-electric submarines, the captain listens to the echo through his headset. American active sonar. He knows exactly what that means. The carrier group is now searching directly, but he also knows something else. They are already close. Very close. He checks the range again. 9 nautical miles. Inside the submarine, the crew moves through the narrow control room with quiet precision. No shouting, no disorder. Just controlled preparation, because this is the kind of moment they have trained for. Above the surface, the carrier strike group begins to adjust. The destroyers spread slightly wider, not enough to alarm nearby civilian ships, but enough to tighten the protective screen around the carrier. On the flight deck, a helicopter crew moves quickly toward a waiting MH-60R Seahawk. The aircraft is already fueled and ready. The Seahawk is one of the Navy's primary submarine tracking platforms. Beneath its frame is a dipping sonar system designed to search deep below the surface. Its external stations carry compact anti-submarine payloads built for underwater targets. Within minutes, the helicopter lifts off. Rotor wash throws spray across the carrier's wake as the Seahawk accelerates forward. Inside the cockpit, the sensor operator watches the digital ocean map update in real time. 3 submarine contacts. Closing range, 8 miles. Now the distance matters. Undersea systems launched from submarines can travel far beyond that range. But at closer distance, the danger becomes much more immediate. Less time to react, less room to maneuver, fewer options. Inside the Combat Information Center, the tactical officer watches the numbers fall. 8 miles, 7. The submarines continue forward at the same slow speed. No sudden turns, no visible hesitation, no sign of confusion. That calm says everything. These crews are not drifting into the strike group by accident. They know exactly where they are going. 5:36. The Seahawk reaches the outer edge of the sonar grid. Beneath it, the sea looks dark and empty. But the sensors say otherwise. The helicopter slows into a hover. The sonar head slips beneath the surface, and the system begins listening immediately. At first, there is only the deep background noise of the ocean. Then a faint mechanical rhythm rises through the speakers. Slow propeller rotation. Heavy steel moving through deep water. A hidden vessel beneath the thermal layer. Submarine confirmed. The sensor operator marks the contact. It is one of the 3. But the other 2 are still out there, still moving closer. Inside the Combat Information Center, the range indicator drops again. 6 nautical miles. At that distance, every officer in the room understands the situation. The submarines have crossed into the zone where an undersea engagement could begin at any moment. Somewhere beneath the dark water of the Strait of Hormuz, 3 Iranian submarines are nearly in position. 5:41. Inside the Combat Information Center, the atmosphere shifts instantly. A sharp acoustic spike flashes across the sonar console. The operator leans in. For half a second, the sound is almost buried inside the ocean's background noise. Then it becomes clear. A high-frequency cavitation pattern. Propeller blades spinning much faster than before. Not a submarine. Something smaller. Something accelerating hard through the water. The operator speaks without hesitation. "Torpedo in the water!" The words cut through the room. Every eye moves to the tactical display. A new contact appears. Speed, 50 knots. Bearing, directly toward the carrier. The computer calculates the track in seconds. Heavyweight torpedo, then it happens again. Another acoustic burst, a second launch. Seconds later, a third. 3 separate propulsion signatures ignite beneath the ocean. 3 underwater threats accelerate forward at combat speed. 3 inbound tracks now converge on the same target, the aircraft carrier. Inside the Combat Information Center, the tactical computer projects the intercept lines. 3 red tracks rush across the digital map. Time to impact appears beside them. 6 minutes. The watch officer does not raise his voice. Carrier maneuvering. Notify the bridge. The order reaches the helm immediately. The massive ship begins to turn. A nuclear-powered carrier weighs nearly 100,000 tons. It cannot move like a destroyer. It cannot snap away from danger. But even a small change in heading can disrupt an incoming torpedo's solution. The rudder shifts. The bow begins a slow swing to starboard. Below the waterline, the carrier's wake bends with it. Sometimes a few degrees can decide everything. Back inside the Combat Information Center, the torpedo tracks continue closing. 5 minutes to impact. Above the surface, the MH-60R Seahawk is already reacting. Through the dipping sonar, the sensor operator hears the launch signatures clearly. 3 distinct propulsion patterns, 3 torpedoes. He marks the vectors quickly, but then another shape appears on the screen. A larger acoustic signature moving slowly beneath the launch point. Submarine. One of the attackers. The helicopter banks sharply toward the contact. Altitude drops. The pilot steadies the aircraft while the sensor operator locks onto the submarine's position. Target confirmed. There is no hesitation now. The Seahawk releases a Mark 54 lightweight torpedo. The payload drops from the helicopter and disappears into the sea below. A moment later, its motor activates and the torpedo begins its own underwater pursuit. Back near the carrier, the defensive response continues. 4 minutes to impact. The tactical officer gives the next command. Deploy Nixie. Along the stern of the carrier, a cable rapidly unspools into the water. At the end of the line, a compact acoustic decoy begins broadcasting powerful noise. The Nixie torpedo decoy. To a torpedo's sonar seeker, the decoy can sound bigger, louder, and more inviting than the carrier itself. It trails behind the ship like a false target, designed to pull the incoming threat away. A second decoy deploys moments later. 2 acoustic ghosts now move through the wake behind the carrier. Inside the Combat Information Center, the display updates. The first torpedo reacts almost immediately. Its track begins to curve. The seeker locks onto the decoy signal. The incoming contact turns away from the carrier and accelerates toward the artificial noise. 1 threat diverted, but the other 2 stay on course. Their guidance remains fixed on the original target. 3 minutes to impact. The carrier continues its evasive turn. Its enormous hull cuts a wider arc through the Strait of Hormuz. Behind it, the decoys trail through the wake like bait. Above the ocean, the Seahawk's torpedo closes on the submarine contact. The Mark 54 switches to active sonar. Ping, ping. Each pulse moves through the water, searching for the steel hull below. Inside the Iranian submarine, the crew hears it immediately. That sound means something is now hunting them. The submarine begins an emergency descent. Ballast tanks flood. The vessel angles downward, trying to slip beneath the sonar cone and break contact. But the Mark 54 is already tracking. Its onboard computer reads every echo, filters the noise, adjusts course, and keeps closing. Back inside the Combat Information Center, the pressure rises by the second. 2 inbound threats remain. Range now less than 2 miles. Time to impact under 2 minutes. Every screen in the room shows the same picture. 2 fast-moving underwater tracks, 1 aircraft carrier, and almost no room left for error. 5:47. Beneath the Strait of Hormuz, the fight turns invisible but intense. Nearly 200 feet below the surface, the Mark 54 released from the Seahawk locks onto its target. Active sonar pulses move through the dark water. Ping, ping. Each return grows sharper. A steel hull. A diesel-electric submarine trying to dive deeper into the acoustic shadows below. Inside the Iranian submarine, the sound is instantly understood. A torpedo is closing. The captain reacts at once. Emergency dive. Ballast tanks flood. The submarine angles sharply downward, descending toward deeper water. The crew releases acoustic countermeasures, small devices designed to imitate the submarine's sound and confuse the incoming weapon. Bursts of false noise spread through the water, but the Mark 54 was designed for this kind of chase. Its onboard system sorts through the echoes. False signals drop away. The real target remains clear. Distance closing. 200 meters, 100. Then a violent underwater detonation breaks the silence. A pressure wave expands through the deep, rolling outward in every direction. On the Seahawk's sensors, the submarine's acoustic signature disappears at once. No propeller rhythm, no hull noise, only disturbed water and fading turbulence. One submarine is out of the fight, but the battle is not over. On the surface, the aircraft carrier keeps turning. Inside the Combat Information Center, the tactical display updates again. 2 inbound tracks remain, both still moving toward the carrier. Range, 1 mile. Time to impact, less than 90 seconds. The carrier's stern cuts hard through the water as the helmsman pushes the maneuver as far as the massive ship will allow. Behind it, the Nixie decoys trail through the wake, sending out powerful acoustic signals. The first incoming torpedo has already taken the bait. On the tactical screen, its path bends away from the carrier, chasing the false signal behind the ship. But the second one does not turn. Its seeker stays fixed on the carrier. Inside the Combat Information Center, nobody speaks. The numbers keep falling. 800 meters, 700, 600. At the same moment, another Seahawk sweeps low over the ocean. This aircraft has been tracking the second submarine contact detected earlier. Its sensors confirm the target. Another Iranian submarine trying to slip away beneath the confusion. The helicopter banks hard left and drops altitude. Target acquired. Seconds later, a second Mark 54 falls from the Seahawk's weapon station and vanishes beneath the waves. The motor activates and the torpedo begins its own pursuit through the dark water. Below the surface, the submarine commander hears the sonar pulses. Ping! He knows exactly what that sound means. Another weapon is searching. The submarine turns sharply, trying to change depth and direction at the same time. But underwater movement takes time, and torpedoes are built for speed. The Mark 54 accelerates through the deep. Its sonar cone sweeps ahead. Then, the echo returns. Steel hull. Target locked. The distance collapses quickly. Moments later, a second underwater detonation rolls through the strait. A column of bubbles rises toward the surface. On the Seahawk's sensors, the submarine signature fades out. 2 submarines have now been taken out of the fight, but inside the Combat Information Center, nobody celebrates. All attention remains on the final threat. The last torpedo. Range, 500 meters. The carrier continues its turn. Its engines drive the enormous hull forward while the decoys trail behind it like lifelines. 400 meters, 300, 200. At that distance, the outcome will be decided in seconds. Every screen in the Combat Information Center tracks the same moving symbol. One final inbound torpedo closing fast. The Strait of Hormuz has become a race between steel, sound, and timing. And somewhere beneath the surface, the last weapon is still searching. 552. The final torpedo is now less than 200 meters from the carrier. Inside the Combat Information Center, every screen follows the same contact. One acoustic signature moving through the water at nearly 50 knots, closing fast. The carrier continues its evasive turn. But a vessel this massive cannot outrun a torpedo. Its only real defense now is deception. Behind the carrier, the Nixie decoys trail through the rough wake, broadcasting powerful acoustic signals into the water. 2 false targets, 2 artificial signatures, each louder and more tempting than the carrier itself. Their entire purpose is to pull the incoming weapon away at the very last moment. On the tactical display, the torpedo's path remains steady, bearing unchanged, still aimed at the ship. Range 150 meters. Inside the Combat Information Center, nobody speaks. The sonar operator watches the waveform rise higher on his screen. The torpedo's propulsion signature is clear now. Fast, sharp, fully committed, 100 meters. Then suddenly the track shifts, only a few degrees at first. The torpedo's seeker begins drifting toward the louder acoustic signal behind the carrier. On the tactical display, the red line slowly bends away from the ship's hull. The weapon is changing targets. Inside the Combat Information Center, the watch officer keeps his eyes fixed on the screen. Still no relief, still no celebration. A torpedo can lose a false target and search again. Range to decoy, 70 meters, then 60. The torpedo accelerates toward the artificial sound source trailing behind the carrier. Its seeker is now locked onto the decoy. Seconds later, the ocean erupts in the carrier's wake. A powerful underwater detonation sends a column of water rising into the morning air. The pressure wave rolls across the surface, but the carrier continues forward, unaffected. The decoy took the hit exactly as designed. Inside the Combat Information Center, the inbound track disappears from the display. The final torpedo is gone, but the fight beneath the Strait of Hormuz is not over yet. One contact remains, the third submarine. While the torpedoes were closing on the carrier, that submarine tried to break away. Its acoustic signature shifted course several minutes earlier, turning north beneath the confusion of sonar pulses, maneuvering ships, and underwater blasts. But the strike group never lost the trail. High above the water, the first Seahawk banks sharply toward the updated coordinates. The crew already knows what comes next. The dipping sonar lowers into the sea once again. Within seconds, the system finds the target, a slow-moving submarine attempting to escape at low speed. The helicopter steadies into position. Contact confirmed. The weapon release is armed. Another Mark 54 drops from the Seahawk and vanishes beneath the waves. Moments later, its motor activates and the torpedo begins its search pattern. Below the surface, the submarine crew hears the sonar pulses immediately. Ping, ping, each echo grows louder. The submarine attempts one final maneuver, diving deeper while releasing acoustic countermeasures into the water. False acoustic signatures spread around it, trying to confuse the incoming weapon. But the Mark 54 has already found the hull. The torpedo accelerates, closing, still closing. Then comes the third underwater detonation. A powerful pressure wave moves through the depths beneath the strait. Moments later, the submarine's acoustic signature disappears from the sonar display. Inside the Seahawk cockpit, the sensor operator confirms the result. Contact lost. Major underwater detonation confirmed. Back aboard the carrier, the Combat Information Center updates the tactical map. 3 submarine tracks, all gone. 3 underwater detonations recorded. The Strait of Hormuz slowly returns to silence. 5:59. The carrier strike group resumes its formation. Destroyers tighten the defensive screen. Helicopters continue circling above the water, scanning for any remaining contacts. But beneath them, the ocean is quiet again. No torpedo signatures, no submarine propulsion, no hidden contacts moving through the deep. Inside the Combat Information Center, the watch officer enters the final line into the operational log. 3 hostile submarines engaged. All threats neutralized. The aircraft carrier continues through the narrow waters of the strait. From the flight deck above, the sea once again looks calm. Cargo ships continue their slow transit. The horizon remains clear. Nothing in the morning light shows what just happened beneath the surface, but everyone inside the strike group knows. 3 submarines approached, 3 torpedoes were launched, and in less than 40 minutes, the hunt beneath the Strait of Hormuz was over.